The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Friday, October 12th. Saturday, October 13th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the very damp mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network and Deep Talk Radio, and we welcome you to tonight's show. All of our archives are free on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot. Soon, shop at our brand new store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe to the channel today. Tonight on SOR, we have Debra Aguayo on the show. She's one of the former stars of the hit television series The Demon Files. Her job was to help investigate the darker side of the paranormal using a blend of instinct, religious belief, and knowledge to help combat the evil spirits that roam this planet. Today, though, Debra has started to step away from the paranormal as she feels it's a field in disarray. Although she still cares about it, and what it can do to help people, the disappointment in the way people operate in the field has pretty much disappointed her. We have talked about that ad nauseum on this show. It's not about helping those in need as much as it is about fulfilling one's own ego. But tonight, we will hit all of the topics of the paranormal with Debra, who is now a chaplain in California. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, Olaf Phillips will be back with the latest edition of The Encounter from the SOR Newsroom. Debra, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. You know, last time we had you on, which was about 2 years ago, one of the topics that we talked about a lot was paranormal television and how that had affected the paranormal. Now, 2 years later, as you see yourself starting to step away, why do you think that it's time to maybe relax a bit on paranormal investigation?
Well, I actually stepped away a little over a year ago. But I didn't really want to completely leave service. You know, I wanted to always be involved in helping people. And, you know, I felt initially led that I was serving God through the paranormal. And I started to feel a little bit burned out and wanting to take some space from it. And I had prayed about it. And I wasn't ready to just completely leave, you know, helping people. So apparently I was led into chaplaincy, and I'm very grateful and blessed for that. And I'm still open to helping people that do need help in the paranormal. But for a lot of personal reasons, I chose to kind of distance myself from that field. So
why start to turn away? What made you all of a sudden look at this and say, this is something that has gone off topic for me and it's time to move on?
Well, a majority of the cases that I was interviewing and vetting, I noticed that there's a common theme going on here, is that the paranormal subject has become so popular because of television. And instead of people finding logical explanations for the activity in their home, whether it be physiological, psychological, or even normal phenomena, their first go-to is that it's a ghost or it's a demon. And when you start gently guiding them out of that focus, they resist, and it became more of a challenge to try to help them solve their problems and find solutions outside of blaming a ghost or a demon. And I also encountered some paranormal teams accidentally doing harm to people that required more of a deeper psychological evaluation and assessment. And I just felt that I just felt more and more led to step away because of those reasons. So
when you look at it, okay, and I'm curious to get an overall view from you, and you know, my line of questioning here, I don't mean to make you uncomfortable with it because everybody has their own personal reasons, but we have been pretty critical about the paranormal field here, about the fact that there is no guidelines, there's no rule books, there's no governing body, and if there was a governing body, you know, would that make a difference in what is going on? But realistically, it's anarchic. It really is anarchic, the way a lot of these teams investigate, and whether they come at it from a religious side, whether they come at it from a scientific side, or whether they're just doing it as a weekend warrior type hobby because it's the new thrill to do. The fact that there are so many different ways that people are using investigative techniques without proper training, without proper understanding or studying, and basically only using television shows as their education models. In reality, I can see why you are a little dismissive of the paranormal these days. It makes sense to me.
Well, it's unfortunate because, you know, the field is fascinating, and, you know, nobody can claim to be an expert of the unknown, you know, so it's a fascinating field. And I think us as human beings by nature, we're always, you know, drawn to wanting to solve, you know, life after death questions and the unknown. And it's just become kind of an entertainment field, and it's recklessly being handled. It's dangerous, in my opinion, both spiritually and in other ways. Dangerous in that you can actually harm somebody who may be compromised, emotionally, and just a number of reasons. I just feel that there are really good teams out there. There are really amazing people out there in the field that do really love people and do have their best interest in heart. But you can't possibly be educated enough before you start entering into this. There's been a lot of mistakes happened along the way that I've encountered.
Explain some of those mistakes if you don't mind.
Well, for example, some of the cases that I encountered, there were some logical explanations to some of the activity that they were experiencing. They had a past that included some severe trauma. So they had some deeply buried PTSD, along with sleep paralysis. And along their journey, they encountered a paranormal team, and the paranormal team went into their house and determined, yes, in fact, you do have a demon, and you are being haunted, and you need this, this, and this to cure your problem. And then ultimately, by the time they got to me, they were in a position of rather believing that they were being repressed and oppressed by some demonic force versus addressing their own emotional health. And so that was very frustrating, and I felt that did that poor individual more harm. So that that was one. And along the way, over the years of interviewing people in this field, I didn't mind, if somebody was just frightened and if I could help calm them down, then I'm happy I've done my job. So even if it was emotional, even if it was a physiological factor going on, that's wonderful. If I could just calm them down and refer them to the proper help, that's the important thing. And I think that's the thing that a lot of the paranormal groups are missing, is that when something is out of your area of knowledge or understanding, you need to refer it to somebody else who can help this person. Always start with a physical exam. Always suggest counseling or a psychological exam. Never dismiss these things.
So when you look at the field and you see the fact, and you were involved in paranormal television, and you've seen the impact that paranormal TV has had on the field in the last 10 to 15 years, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it?
On one hand, I like the fact that people are more open-minded to the paranormal, because I do feel that it is definitely a reality. But I don't like the fact that it's become so popular, so that now everybody's got a haunted house and every case has to be demonic, and it's just become oversaturated a little bit. I think we need to kind of find a happy medium. And I also believe that people themselves can haunt their own environments, and not everything is attributed to an actual spirit or a ghost.
Do you think then that people are creating their own tulpas by the fact that they are now so enthralled with the paranormal?
I do. I do believe that can be an actual possibility. Again, I'm not an expert of the unknown, because no one is. But that is one of my theories. Yes, I believe that people that are, I believe that heightened emotions and energy can leave an imprint on the environment. And whatever you choose to focus on and fixate on, you can kind of leave that in your environment.
So do you think a lot of people then are conjuring up their own?
Not necessarily. I think that it could be one of the possibilities.
Oh, goodness. So
Have you thought of that yet?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, you got to realize though, I guess I'm looking at this from a different angle where we have, let's take the past couple thousand years, there's billions of ghosts and spirits walking around. So those spirits and ghosts could be absolutely anywhere. We don't know where they traveled on this planet. And for us to say that we're not actually having hauntings, I find that
I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm saying that there are so many different causes to activity. Sometimes just geomagnetic activity, natural phenomena, psychological factors, health issues, environmental factors, and possibly there is also the fact that because people have become so focused and fixated on it, are they not manifesting things themselves?
Do you think then, is it because of a lack of protection, a lack of prayer, a lack of understanding of the paranormal that they are having these troubles now?
I think that what you choose to focus on, what you choose to really give a majority of your focus and your energy to, that opens you up.
Explain that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay, so for example, if you're really focused on the paranormal and you're fascinated by it, you're reading about it a lot, you're watching the television shows a lot, and you're focusing more on that than any other subject, for example, you can be inadvertently inviting activity into your life by doing so.
Do people even realize that they're doing this?
I don't know. I don't think that everyone does know that, but that was definitely one of my first suggestions when I would start interviewing somebody that thought that they were having activity in their home, is I would ask them to try to deter their focus from that and cease the television viewing and just kind of put all of that aside and kind of, start over from a more grounded position. So I think it's a real possibility. And I also think that people with a heightened level of emotional disturbance can accidentally, create things in their environment that causes what appears to be paranormal activity.
I do have to ask you, in regards to all of these paranormal teams, you must have been just eye-rolling a couple of years ago when every team had their own specialized demonologist. I had a good laugh with one of these teams where this 22-year-old kid said he'd been a demonologist for like 5 years. I'm thinking...
Well, I try not to...
we can laugh about it on this show. We can laugh about it on this show.
But I really love people, and we've all had our enthusiasm for this field, and everybody's in different places and different stages in learning and everything. So I don't want to ever sound as though I'm being judgmental. But yeah, there's, anyone can basically pop up and have read some books and they suddenly are a demonologist, and that alone is a dangerous position to put yourself into. Even though a majority of the cases you'll find are not legitimately demonic, on the off chance that you do encounter something that is legitimate, they're not possibly going to be prepared to deal with it properly. So it's really dangerous.
I always had a good laugh with it. I'm not going to lie. I had a good laugh with these young men and women who were, barely out of high school claiming that they were demonologists. And I was wondering, you've barely got out of high school. What religious study have you done? Which parapsychology courses have you taken? Which psychology courses have you taken at this time to claim that you are an expert in demonology? I mean, we're talking about the most dangerous part of the paranormal and ghost hunting and spiritual communication. And yet you were just in diapers a few years back. Like, come on.
Yep. Very, very reckless and dangerous. And not only could it harm them, but it can harm their family members, and it can, harm the people that they're trying to help. And they may have good intentions, but it's just definitely not something that you want to go, barging into like that. Ooh.
Without naming names, what were some of your most frustrating experiences when you started looking at the paranormal and all of these teams popping up quicker than 7-Elevens or Walmarts in a town?
What I had mentioned earlier is that I felt that they were really quick to assume that for whatever reason they were experts, and that they would dismiss and overlook certain things that could be obvious, like for example, the person could be experiencing some legitimate activity, but yet at the same time they have some unaddressed emotional issues that they have not fully dealt with, and you wind up scaring them even further, and it just deepens their position and all of that, and that is doing harm. And that was my biggest frustration.
What about the weekend warrior stuff?
Oh, they're just a bunch of people just out trying to have a good time, and they are probably not going to be turned away from it because it's fun until they usually get scared or something happens like that. I mean, it is what it is. People are just out there with their gadgets and thinking it's a good time, and at first it is until, they start encountering things that they're not prepared to deal with.
So when you talk about things that they're not prepared to deal with, what's the biggest mistake some of these amateurs are making?
I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here and just say it. I think spirit communication in general can be very dangerous if you don't really understand what you're doing. It's kind of like hit or miss. You can go into a haunted location, and basically, in my opinion, there is no more of a difference between a Ouija board and doing any form of spirit communication. It's pretty much all the same. It would be ridiculous for me to deny that. So when you open up a line of communication with anything paranormal, you really don't know what you're communicating with. And so that, to me, is one of the more dangerous aspects of the paranormal.
You mentioned the Ouija board, and Karen Dahlman, a good friend of yours and this show's, is what I would call an expert in the Ouija board. She does it right. She comes on here every Halloween with us, the last couple, and this will be the third Halloween in a row where we're going to do a live Ouija board session. A lot of people absolutely crucify the Ouija board as a communication device. Yet you're saying it's the same as using other tools, which is something I agree with. When you look at the Ouija board, why do you think it gets such a bad name? Is it Hollywood? Is it all of these stories and folklore that we have heard that have scared people off?
I think because of the specific people that have had negative encounters with the Ouija board have had a specific encounter with something demonic attached to the Ouija board. It just seems as though the Ouija board has more of a stigma attached to it. But again, like I said, any type of spirit communication, you're opening up that communication with the other side, and whatever is going to come through is going to come through. So I don't really find that there's a difference.
So does it get a bad rap?
Bad rap. I think that any type of spirit communication is equally dangerous, whether it be the Ouija board or doing a communication session on a ghost box or an SB7. It's spirit communication. So I think that people aren't really thinking it through when they are completely fearful of the Ouija board, but yet they run around and use their SB7 everywhere or their ghost app devices. It's the same thing.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. They just haven't thought it all the way through. I don't know. It's just, I have some friends that have studied the Ouija board, and they believe that there is a specific entity attached to it that can come through, and I would not disagree with that necessarily. And again, this is all speculation. No one can be an expert of the unknown, and that's the dangerous aspect of what people are messing with, is no one really knows. We can only speculate, and we can only have years of research behind us, but how can we say that we really know what we're doing, or we really know what we're communicating with?
So what do you think we are communicating with? Obviously, with your religious background, you believe there is an afterlife.
I have no idea what we're communicating with. I mean, are we communicating with a spirit, or just an innocent human spirit? Are we communicating with a demon acting as a human spirit? Are we who knows? Who can say for sure, without a doubt? And I think that that's why that caution is in place, and it's in Scripture, is just do not communicate with them. And you can do an investigation without communicating with them. You can go into a home and you can run a recorder while you're doing your investigation. You can use your instruments to gauge. And I think that the best way to sense and feel the paranormal is just with your own body, and then back it up with the equipment and things like that. Just don't open up that communication.
So how do we know what we're dealing with then?
We don't. One of the ways that I think is effective is that if you are dealing with something malevolent, typically, again, it has to be done with caution, but spiritual, you do not want to use spiritual provocation, but if you go in there, and prayer is typically not well received, and you can pick that up on a recording without communicating with it, and then you could always back away and refer it to clergy, and or a priest. That is one indicator, and go from there. And I have found that typically, if you do find that the house is legitimately haunted by a human spirit, those are a little more resistive, and those aren't going to be as ruffled by prayer, and those are a little more challenging to deal with.
How come? Is it because they don't know they're dead?
I think two things. I think that in hauntings, sometimes it can be a residual, where somebody's energy has just been left in that environment, and it's just kind of a loop. Then I also think that if somebody, I think that if somebody is here, they are so attached to the area and the surroundings, and they're so far into their own kind of sleepwalk, I call it, that they're not open to doing anything else and moving on.
So how often then, if these spirits are having the ability to play some sort of trickery, whether we're using an SB7 or a Ouija board, how do we know we're actually communicating with whom we are wanting to communicate with?
Exactly. That's why I recommend not doing it.
Okay, but someone like Karen Dahlman, who is well known in this field for it, or people like Bill Hauser, who are using the ghost box, trying to get responses, how do we know that if we are asking for, who knows, let's say my grandfather or my nephew or somebody along those lines, how do we know it's them, or is there a defining line between how much the other side tries to play tricks on us?
How can I answer that? Because honestly, one of the biggest things that I learned from my brief experience in demonology in the field, I was never a demonologist, but working alongside a demonologist is that if you are in fact dealing with a demon, they are masters of deception. And Satan himself was a being of light. He was an angel of light. And some of the scariest demonic cases I've ever heard of or encountered were ones that were deceptive enough to come across as a being of light. A lot of times they will come out as being deceased loved ones, and people will attach themselves to that spirit that's mimicking a loved one. And it's that it is just, no one can say for sure. And if you're dealing with somebody that claims to be a medium and so sure of themselves that they can 100% tell you that they know what you're communicating with, then they are not in a safe place in doing that. Because I will tell you right now, a bishop that I spoke with, he himself would not claim to know the difference. You just have these guidelines and these rules, and you can go by them or not, and it's human nature not to. But there is no way anyone can say without a doubt that they know what they're communicating with.
I can understand that because you're not seeing them, you're not feeling them, but take away your religious belief and your own.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
but there are many other beliefs out there that give people the confidence that they are communicating with whom they want to communicate with. So who's to say? I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but who's to say that you're right and they're wrong, or vice versa?
Well, I'm not saying that they aren't possibly communicating with who they think they are, but I'm saying that there is a chance that they aren't, and you just cannot be certain. And I love open discussions, and I don't mind, anybody questioning my beliefs, and I don't mind questioning other people's beliefs at all. I enjoy that kind of conversation. So, yeah, it's fine. But I don't see how anyone can be sure what they're communicating with. I'm sure that there have been cases where a loved one has come through, and that's beautiful and that's wonderful. And I've had some really significant experiences in doing that type of work. But I at this point in my life, knowing what I know about demonic and the paranormal, I would prefer to just leave that communication door closed.
And I don't blame you. You. What about these paranormal teams out there, once again, without naming any names, that go to say whether or not a place is haunted, whether it's a private residence or a business, do whatever it takes to stir up the spirit activity that is there, and then leave? And they don't bother clearing, they don't bother talking to the clients about it, presenting evidence or nothing. And I realize that this is something that is very problematic in the paranormal field. But for the majority of people who are having any sort of spirit activity in their home or place of work or wherever they may be, they're maybe just relying on Google. They're not doing research. They just want someone who can provide some sort of answers to come on in, which may be doing themselves their own disservice. So what do you think of those teams who are taking on personal clients and not really dealing with the issue?
Yeah, I think it's really unethical. Unfortunately, I had an experience with a team that I thought was, I was very careful because this particular person was dealing with a bunch of different issues all at once. She was dealing with geomagnetic activity. She had some emotional disturbances, and she was having, I believe, legitimate paranormal activity. And because of the sensitivity of the whole situation, I wanted to be very careful with the team that I brought in. I wanted her to have some peace of mind knowing, okay, this is you are on an underground river, you're on court, you have a mine right next to you, you have gigantic power lines on top of you, you're in a massive conduit for just even natural phenomena right there, you know? And I wanted to just kind of break it down for her. And the paranormal team just went in there, and they were just rude and dismissive of her because they thought that she was odd. And they really didn't even take their time and treated her with the respect that she deserved. And because they weren't getting enough evidence that they felt was important to them, they just kind of wanted to screw around and were very disrespectful and rude. And lo and behold, the person that I do respect greatly in this field that I had brought with me, he collected a bunch of evidence that was being recorded inside of the home while we were just talking to the individuals that lived there. And that's when I decided to never bring another paranormal team with me on any cases unless I really knew them, because they were just so incredibly rude and they were impatient and they didn't seem to really have the people's interest at heart. And these people even paid for their travel to get there. And yeah, it was terrible. It was just absolutely horrible. But a lot of times that was the situation. You know, I would have a phone interview with somebody and they were just in tears because they had a team come in and the team stirred it up and put up their equipment and took their pictures and got their recordings, and then they'd leave. And they offered them no solutions and no suggestions. And I wish that there were some sort of set of ethics that everybody had to adhere to, but there isn't. So
it is sad. It really is, because I don't think a lot of these teams really fully understand that they are playing with people's lives. And, you know, I know the scenarios up here at our museum where we've had people, you know, come in and want to stir things up a little bit. And usually I'm right there and I will say to them, no, you're not going there. And when they say why, I say, because you get to go home. And I got to come back here to deal with this in the future.
Right. It's just cruel, you know, unless somebody's actually lived through, you know, a paranormal situation. It's so cruel to do that to somebody. And my goal all along, whether it was real, imagined, or a combination of both, my entire goal all along in the paranormal field was to calm people down and take their mind away from fear and center them more into what could be going on, and normalizing some of the activities so it's not so scary. And that was always my goal. So, you know, even if talking to somebody for 6 months, it turns out that it was all related to some repressed childhood trauma, and I was able to get them back into their therapist and you know, settled in, then I felt good and I did my job. And I just want more people in the paranormal, if they're going to be going into people's homes and they're not just going to these haunted tours, that they need to consider the people that they're dealing with and know that they're going into their home. And if they're inciting their fear, then they're doing harm. And hopefully they can rethink about what they're doing a little bit differently.
So how does one protect themselves if they have or they live currently with a spirit or work in a haunted place?
Well, if you're, depending on the activity that you're experiencing, one of the things I like to tell people that weren't experiencing anything too extreme is that the word, if you break it into para and it's paranormal, if you normalize some of the paranormal and understand that it is something that we will never fully understand, but it's always been there and always will be, and it's part of our lives, and it's part of kind of the cool mystery of life. And just try not to fixate on it. Try not to focus on it as much, because I know that the more you focus on it and the more you are fearful, the more it seems the activity increases. So I think to kind of just keep yourself regulated as much as possible in that type of environment, and just stay very centered. Try not to interact with it as much as possible. Get sound help if you are connected with a church in any way. That again, that can be kind of dangerous and scary too. You can just, the more grounded and centered spiritually that you are, the better. And I think that the less you focus on it, the better. And if you are in a position of needing help, make sure that you're screening the people that are coming to help you as much as possible. Speak to past cases that they've helped, if they would allow that, and get referrals before bringing them in. And if you live in, or if you're working in a paranormally charged environment, again, just stay really grounded, stay centered, try to downplay the activity as much as possible, and don't be afraid.
Sounds good. Does ignoring work?
No, but ignoring sometimes can kind of, I believe that for whatever reason, our energy being charged up seems to charge the activity up. And so I think that if you're kind of more grounded and, as long as it's not something harmful or something that's deliberately trying to frighten you, it is what it is. It's just something bizarre going on around you, and you just kind of want to go, okay, what is that all about? And just kind of just downplay the activity a little bit. I think you're better off. If it's something attached to an object, that's a whole separate issue. But if it's somebody that's attached to a property, the scenarios are really hard to kind of sum up in one. I think the way you protect yourself has to do a lot with each individual case and situation.
Yeah, because everything would be unique.
Everything is unique. That's the thing about this field. There is no one recipe for every situation, so.
Have you ever had a situation where you've dealt with the same spirit more than once?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, you got to go into that story. That sounds eerie.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I do. I think so. I do believe that I encountered something that this person was dealing with again later on in another case, and it was just way too similar and way too ironic. I really honestly would rather not talk about it. It was one of my more legitimate cases, both of those cases, and it was just too specific.
Right.
To be a coincidence. Yeah.
Well, if it makes you uncomfortable, I'm not gonna press you on it too much, because there are things that affect. There are things that affect, and we don't want anything coming back to say, "Hey, guess what? I'm back for the hat trick."
I just found I'm not even worried about that so much as that it was just such it was just the both people involved in those situations were deeply traumatized, and I really don't like to give attention to things like that are just, it was just really an unpleasant experience for them and for me working through it with them. And so yeah.
Well, how do you protect yourself then? If every situation is unique, do you have a formulated game plan that you do to protect yourself before going into a haunted zone?
Well, how I protect myself now versus how I protected myself then. As I was learning on my own journey, in my own way, I've learned these things. Again, I can't say without with certainty that everybody should do it the way I do it. But what I have found along my journey and along my experiences and along my mistakes is that when I was younger and in the field, new into the field, I always had, I believe, aside from honestly some curiosity, my intention was always good. Sure, it was fun. Sure, it was scary. My curiosity drove me, to some degree. But ultimately, I always wanted to do the right thing. I always wanted to do good for the people. I never wanted to upset anything that I encountered or disrespect anything that I encountered. I was just a very curious person, and also led to really want to help people because I myself had lived in a paranormally charged home that ultimately resulted in someone close to me that was an atheist become a believer, So I know what it's like to live in a haunted home, and, so it kind of put me in that field. So back when I first started, I think my good intentions were a majority of what kept me safe. And then plus to my faith foundation, my belief in God and my understanding of evil on a different level aside from face value. I understood that, the way demonic can mess with people is predominantly through your mind and your thoughts. So that was how I protected myself then. And then as I continued in the field, not only my curiosity has kind of slowed down because I've come to understand that we'll never have these answers. And plus that slowing down and not going into these things haphazardly and really taking my time evaluating people and evaluating the situation, before you go into it, and just proceeding with caution, and also keeping myself very centered, not just spiritually, but also emotionally. And just understanding that you really can, go in there recklessly and haphazardly and with good intentions even still and get hurt. So slowing down and really paying attention to what is going on and taking your time to assess before you enter into a situation. And again, I think one of the biggest keys to being spiritually grounded is to be humble and to try to keep your ego at bay as much as possible and understand exactly how ego manifests itself. And one of the big ways is being very sure of yourself and being very cocky and thinking that you know things that you really don't know before you get answers. I think that is another really big mistake that can lead to people being harmed accidentally. And just basically following the guidelines. I'm a spiritual person, and I have come to believe more and more in Scripture, not because of what I was told or taught growing up, but because of what I've experienced. And there's a reason why even in Scripture they give us certain guidelines to follow in dealing with the paranormal and the supernatural. And
go ahead, please.
Oh, no, that's fine. I've been talking.
Well, I was going to ask, just by listening to you here, I was going to ask you the question, do you fear the paranormal?
Not at all.
But you're just extremely cautious.
Yeah, I actually fear it less now than I ever have. But I have a much deeper respect for the paranormal. The same with demonic activity. I don't enjoy it. I don't welcome it at all, but I don't fear it at all because I've seen what it takes to back it away. And, but I have tremendous respect for it. And in that respect, that's what's caused me to go about doing things differently. And same with the paranormal. It's just, I don't fear it. I respect it. It's not a hobby. It's not a pastime. It's not something to do on a Friday night. It is something serious that people need to respect.
So where does the lack of respect come from? The lack of education?
I really can't speak for every individual. I think it's curiosity, and I think it's just kind of, everybody starts out somewhere, and I think that they go in, just curious, and they want to stir things up because they want to experience something, and inadvertently they wind up getting a little more than they expected. People can wind up with all kinds of different things. It's something that they should not be stirring up unless they really understand what they may or may not be dealing with.
True, but you have to admit that sometimes the attitude of people is that they already know what they're dealing with. They've watched Ghost Adventures. They've watched Paranormal State. They've watched the Demon Files. They are experts now because they've downloaded every episode.
Well, exactly. But again, I think with enough experiences that are legitimate and, humbling, they kind of learn that, okay, this is a little more and deeper than they expected to experience, and maybe they'll slow down a little bit. I don't know.
What about people who are intuitive?
Again, if you are intuitive, then that should also come with knowing that along with being intuitive, you can't always be right. And that perception and experiencing the paranormal, good grief, let's see, how do I put this? It's just like, there's all kinds of ways of being intuitive.
Right.
And I believe everybody to some degree is intuitive. I think it's part of us. Yeah, it's part of being human. But certain people have much more advanced levels of intuition and different abilities that they are given and attuned and developed with. And I consider myself to be an intuitive person, but I also know that I can be wrong and that there are different things that I could be picking up on. So I just think that people just need to that's great. I'm glad that you have gifts. I'm glad that you're intuitive. I'm glad that you call yourself a psychic, but I think you need to kind of just settle down, kind of calm down on that. That's where ego gets in there. And I'm just very cautious of people that are very out with their abilities and quick to share them and boast about them, because I think that, again, I think the more humble somebody is, the more they've come to understand that they are human and that they can be wrong. Therefore, that makes them a little bit more grounded.
We only got about 3 minutes here before we have to go to our first break of the night, Deb. And I think you're being a real champ tonight. Awesome.
Well, thank you. I'm tired.
I don't blame you. With your background in the paranormal, and we're going to focus on something different in the next hour, but with your background in the paranormal, what would you like to see changed in this entire field? What would make it better?
I would just like for people to, if they are going to be doing a private case, that they are very clear with the people that they're working with, that their goal is to go in there and gather evidence, but then they also have to have referrals in place. So if they go in there and gather evidence, then they need to then be prepared to refer the people to other areas of help where needed. So if you go in there and gather evidence and you find out that there's nothing and that these people are really scared, then you should probably refer them to a source of help that will help them calm down and not be so frightened. And, also refer them to all the different resources of other areas, and don't just go in there, gather your evidence, and go home. Just, be very conscientious of what you're doing and how you can really, truly help somebody, and know when it's out of your area of expertise.
Would you one day like to see a rule book? Some sort of guideline that teams have
That'd
to follow?
That'd be cool. Yeah, and just some sort of sense of some sort of set ethics, and just some sort of minimal background training so that they can identify what carbon monoxide poisoning looks like, or what high EMF spikes can do to somebody physiologically, or just some basic things like that a lot of people overlook, because they're so excited, and that's okay. It's exciting, and it's fun, and it's interesting, but don't shut off to other possibilities of what can be going on, and just have some basic understanding of psychology and insight in that, and know that, if somebody is frightened and possibly fragile emotionally, going in there and adding to their fears inadvertently, it's cruel. It's not okay. And if somebody is afraid, and you do feel that it could be related to psychological issues or substance abuse, always be upfront and refer them to proper care.
And on that note, Deb, I'm going to get you to hold on right now, because we're going to go to our first break of the night. Debra Aguayo is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking all things paranormal, demonic, and how her new career is helping forge her way into, or out of the paranormal, but into something very, very unique and helpful to people. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with more right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty, from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Beamer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour, the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. This weekend, Tessa Nicole Thomas is back in the captain's seat with Spaced Out Weekend while I am out in the wilderness trying to find my Zen and my Chi and maybe a Sasquatch or two. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We say hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Don't forget, all of our archives can be found at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Michael McNeil has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. And Mike, I got to tell you, we're going to start putting a letter limit on this. This is ridiculous. Hippopotamonstrosis diallophobic? What the hell is this? Hippopotamonstrosis quipidallophobic. Well, that is your password for tonight, as Michael Orbill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot. We got a brand new store coming up very soon with some beautiful t-shirts, hats, hoodies, coffee mugs. It's all coming for you. And you can also read up on the Encounter Online, our news section, which is pretty darn good, if I will say so myself. Thank you, Captain Shirk and the president of Team Stump, Everett Thiemer. Really appreciate that. Tonight we are talking with Debra Aguayo. Did I get it right? No, I didn't.
You got it worse.
I got it worse.
It's okay.
Hey, no, I
just pretend it's an A and a Y.
Aguayo.
Aguayo. Yeah, that's
Aguayo.
fine.
There we go. You know what? I was trying to.
It's a hard one.
I'll be honest with you. Where I wrote it down, it was blocked by my microphone, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. You got to be kidding
totally
me.
Fine.
So unprofessional right now. My notepad was being blocked by my microphone.
It's not unprofessional. It's a hard one. That's a tough last name to pronounce.
Aguayo.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Totally
Mine's
fine.
tough to pronounce too. Scott.
That's
now,
a hard one.
if I told you my real last name, which is like long and 11 letters and very Ukrainian, it would be pretty difficult. Pretty difficult.
You cut it down to Scott. That's pretty good.
Well, Scott is my middle name. Scott is my middle name.
Oh.
So I technically, legally, I use my real name. I just don't use my last name.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple. I got some questions from our audience here for you, if you don't mind.
Okay. I don't mind.
We always like to bring them in. The Ukrainian watermelon, Ron Moniak, who says hi as he's waving from Saskatchewan. He's a mutual Facebook friend of ours. Good guy. Got to meet him a couple of weeks ago, him and his wife, Kelly. Some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. Seriously. Fantastic.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he cheers for a terrible football team, but, not everybody's perfect. But he asks, what does one do if they encounter a demon?
Well, first of all, what makes them think that it is, and if they are even suspecting that it is, first of all, protect yourself, back away, try not to provoke it, and just hopefully if you have a faith-based, foundation to your life, address it, spiritually in your faith base. But absolutely try not to provoke it or stir it up, and get the right help if you possibly can.
When you say help, are you talking clergy type help?
Clergy help is always the best if you can. And even that you need to be careful with, because unfortunately there's some really unusual people out there running around doing, doing exorcisms and house blessings. So you just have to really do your homework and understand that, if you are reaching out for help, that you are screening your people as much as possible. Get referrals, and just be very careful who you bring into it. Ultimately, just like I said, whatever your spiritual faith is, approach it from that perspective. And whatever you do, don't bring in a unscreened paranormal team.
No,
that will make it worse.
Yes, I can absolutely agree with that in regards to it. When it comes to clergy, does the religion matter? So let's say, I got a friend Keith, Reverend Keith, who's been a guest on this show. He's a Methodist priest, pastor, whatever they call. would that be so much different than, say, a Catholic priest?
I'm non-denominational at this point. I personally don't think it would matter as long as the clergy is truly prepared and spiritually centered and understand really what they're doing, because ultimately it's God that is in charge of these things, and if you're being used properly as a vessel of God, then the denomination isn't going to matter. So personally, I don't think so. I have found that it is true what they say about the Catholics, is that they're a little more experienced in this field and a little more prepared because there's a little more training that goes into what they do. And, centuries they've been trained in exorcism and studying demonology a little bit more so than other denominations. So I personally, if I had a problem, I would want to bring in a Catholic priest, even though I'm non-denominational.
Follow-up question. Go ahead. Finish up.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead. That's
okay. Fine. Follow-up question from the Ukrainian watermelon, Ron, who's waving profusely in Saskatchewan right now. So if everybody looks towards Saskatchewan, you'll see Ron waving because it's so flat there. He's still looking for his dog that ran away 10 miles ago. But nonetheless, you can still see the dog. He's okay. He hasn't gone after him yet.
Poor Ron.
Well, you know what? If you've seen the gifts that he has given me, see, up here we have the Canadian Football League, and I realize it's nowhere close to the NFL or the popularity of the NFL, but the CFL is very important to many Canadians. And I'm a BC Lions fan, and he's a Saskatchewan Roughriders fan. The Rough Rider fans are the equivalent of like Oakland Raiders fans, where they don't know what they're cheering for. They just wear a good outfit and go to the game and cheer the black on, right? Well, in the Riderville, these people, they will tailgate in like minus 20 degrees Celsius weather with no T-shirt on and a watermelon on for helmets.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible. And their body will be painted green. I don't get them. I don't get them at all. But I've got two Rough Rider hats in my studio right now from Ron. And a bottle of dark rum, which hasn't been opened.
Well.
He means well. He's just confused on his football team. But nonetheless.
That's okay.
Nonetheless, here's a question from Ron, part 2 of his question. He goes, in the Bible, Moses talked to God. Or was it a demon? Because the Bible says not to communicate, yet it's contradicting itself.
Oh, no, it's not. There is a difference. Okay, when you spirit communication, you're directly speaking to the dead. You're trying to communicate with an unknown, and when you are in prayer, you're not outwardly. It's a whole. Let's see. How can I explain this? Because I understand the question and I understand the point that he's making, but I'm talking about blatant spirit communication where you're using devices and means and stuff to communicate with something on the other side. As far as communicating with God in prayer, you usually open in prayer and address God himself in the prayer before you enter into the prayer, and then you close it with amen. I mean, you don't go about spirit communication in that manner, and it's a whole separate thing.
All right. Dale is asking, Uncle Dale, we call him around here, has a very nice mustache. Probably the best mustache of all our listeners right now. Power stash, we call it. He is asking, what about holy objects, relics, etc.? What is the energy or your opinion on those?
I've seen them work. So I was a skeptic. Again, I was raised Southern Baptist, so I had no point of reference on any of that, and I would be okay with it being not true and just, but I've personally firsthand seen them work. I do believe in holy water. It works. I think that things, when you put intention on them and you really pray over something, I do believe that intention holds. And I think that the blessed objects are really legitimate, and they do offer protection, and they do work.
Karen is asking, how can we have two people enter the same space considered haunted, but the two walk away with such different experiences, one of positivity and one of an evil presence?
Again, that's the thing where we have to embrace our human side. Perception is always individual. You can have two people sit side by side and see the same movie and walk away with a whole different interpretation of the movie and a whole different emotional experience of the movie. Everybody brings their own stuff to the table. Everybody brings their own abilities, their own memories, their own experiences in life, and will come out with a different emotional imprint on a location or an experience that they're investigating. That's why it's
Go ahead, sorry.
That's why it's important to get a collective on these things.
Follow-up question from Karen. How do we know then that the haunted spaces are not really haunted, but are merely creations of our own mind?
That's a good question. I like that question. We don't. So then ultimately, the approach would be to, again, eliminate the fear, change the focus, and accept, and instead of trying to be afraid and solve the phenomenon, try to find a different way of looking at it, depending on exactly what you're dealing with, of course, and severity of. Like, let's just say you see a shadow up and down in your hallway, instead of fixating on it and running out and buying all kinds of gadgets and trying to communicate with it, then, maybe downplay it. And sometimes I've actually handled cases over the phone and just helped people look at things in a different way, and that eliminated the activity in itself. So whether the activity was being created in their mind or whether or not their fear and their focus was making it worse and manifesting it, or the fact that they stopped giving it so much focus and energy made it go away, who knows? No one's going to know, and I will never claim to think I know. So, yeah. I know that's absolutely unhelpful, but that's where I'm at. And
Speaking of funny, I got to ask this question. I know it was probably meant as a little bit of snark on Twitter, but my Twitter crowd is hilarious and they make me laugh sometimes. So this one at hashtag Spaced Out Radio comes from John. He goes, I can't even ask this with a straight face. He goes, does attractiveness of the help affect the ghosts? I mean, do ugly people scare ghosts as much as they do humans?
I don't know, but I've oddly enough, back when I did cross lines that I don't cross anymore and was using devices and ways to communicate, there have been some really oddly inappropriate comments and things that we've caught that were referring to different female parts. So yeah, I think that could play into it too. Who knows?
Well, I got called fat one day by a ghost.
I've been called names.
Yeah, I got called fat. Where's the fat guy?
No, that's yeah. I had a couple of references to my chest on investigations. It's just really weird. It's just such a bizarre, it's such a surreal thing, and I'm so grateful for all the experiences I've had. I'm just, it's just been a journey.
Let's go back to Ron here. He's asking, Debra, have you ever crossed spirits over, and what is your opinion on crossing over spirits?
Again, how on earth can anyone really know? I think I have experienced something like that. Again, I really am not sure what happened. All I know is that, well, first let me explain this, is that I do think that God gives free will, and I think sometimes even in death, God allows free will. I think some people choose to stay for whatever reason. I know that that goes against Scripture in some beliefs, but that could be. But I also don't think that people are just wandering aimlessly, and I don't think that us as human beings that it's necessarily our job to go out and find these wayward spirits and cross them over like some crusader. I don't think that God is going to just let people wander around aimlessly, and I do think that if someone is lost spiritually and you do encounter them, again, that is just some area that you've got to tread very carefully. I think if you do encounter a spirit that you think is lost and stuck, instead of addressing them and talking to them and thinking that you're crossing them over, I think your best thing to do is to just pray for them. Pray for them out loud and address it that way. You should deal directly with God when you encounter somebody that you think is in a purgatory state, and do so with prayer. I know a lot of people that are gifted mediums, and they do encounter people, and they do feel that they cross people over. And I'm not about to say that I know different or I know better. And it's just my cautious position on that is to just pray for them. But I have encountered something like that, and all I know is that we were in a location where there was a serial killer that had raped and murdered women in an orange grove. And I was out there investigating, and I had a family member with me, and I started feeling like I was in contact with something, and it was very specific, and I felt it was female, and I brought this very frightened female back to the group, and the REM pod started activating, and the millimeter was going berserk, and we started communicating with her. I think it was a her. And she felt very frightened, and it was my impression that she felt that God wouldn't receive her because she had been one of the prostitutes that was a victim. And it was a very emotional experience, and we prayed for her, and we got an EVP that said thank you right after the prayer was over, and all of the devices just stopped. And after that, I was really tired, and I slept for about 3 days. And looking back on it, it was just such a bizarre experience. Was it a coincidence? Did I just get really fatigued because I was out in the cold all night? Was I fighting off a cold? I mean, will I ever really know? No. But what I felt emotionally, I experienced, it felt real, and it seemed real.
Wow. Let's go to another question here. This one from Karen. She says, what if someone communicated with a being or spirit for over 25 years and the messages are consistent and helpful? Would that be considered something or someone with whom you know you are communicating?
Oh, again, be so careful. Attachments and, where you're getting your information from. Whenever you are trying to get answered questions outside of, from other areas, that's a tough one. That's something that needs to be treaded on with very careful discernment. And I would, again, I probably sound very black and white about that, but I prefer to only seek answers from God. And that's about it. And if a loved one is coming through or whatever, I will pray about it. And I will say, if this is not from God, please take it away. And if it is from God, please help me to understand.
All right. Well, let's move on. Ron is asking, and I just want to get through the audience questions here because we always like to include them.
I hope I'm answering them properly, because sometimes I get tongue-tied. There's so much I want to,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Ron's question is, the reality is, Deborah, people will go ghost hunting. So where do you suggest people learn or acquire proper skills to do paranormal investigation?
Probably from some sort of light and fluffy haunted location that offers a ghost tour, if you're going to do it. I'm personally not going to recommend that anybody does do it. Go as an observer. If you want to just have a spooky good time, go into a well-known haunted location with a guided tour and just walk through it and experience it that way. Because again, like I said, nobody could have talked me out of the paranormal when I first went into it, and lo and behold, I wound up going deep into it and going into a very specific aspect of it. So people are going to do what they're going to do.
Uncle Dale is asking, Dave, how's your firewood coming? I'm about halfway. And I've got
How much wood do you usually need for a winter? Do you need like a couple cords or?
Oh, yeah, probably 4 or 5 cords.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Mrs. Spaced Out Radio has a burning problem.
I'm on fire too.
Yeah, I actually have to send her to Burnaholics Anonymous.
With pyro.
Oh, yeah. I walked upstairs.
Nothing's better than...
I walked upstairs the other day, and my upstairs of my house was like 98 degrees. I'm like, is this not a little warm right now?
You should get a humidifier, too. If you're burning that much wood and stuff, adding a humidifier, like a whole house humidifier, those are really nice.
Oh, we have one built in.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. It works. No, but, going with the firewood, because we got a wood stove, and going with the firewood that we have, it probably saves us during the winters. Because you got to realize, winters up here get cold. If you're in the Vancouver area, it's not that cold. You get up here, it's nothing to be, minus 25, minus 30 degrees Celsius, which would be
a little drier.
Which would be in that minus 25 Fahrenheit range.
Yeah, you don't have the humidity keeping it warmer.
No, so basically, it saves me about $200 to $300 a month in heating costs by using my wood stove. And if the power goes out, I still have something to cook on. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, I've had that. I lived in the mountains for a while, and we had such a heavy snowfall, and my son was only 3. And I had to heat the house entirely with the firewood. And thank God I was a little, resource hoarder. So I had plenty of firewood and plenty of food in the freezer that I was able to keep in the snow, to just keep us going for a whole week. So, yeah.
Oh, I know.
Something else when you have to heat your house like that. Candles and the whole bit. So, a French press. I learned from living that way that I cannot be without coffee. That was like one of my biggest fears, aside from running out of firewood. So I got myself a French press, so that way I could always make sure I had coffee. It was good.
Well, you know what? I almost thought last year, the way our winter just would not end, that I was going to run out of firewood, and I didn't.
Oh, good.
I lucked out. I had like about 35 pieces left, and I'm like, I win. I still win.
And so this year you're really preparing.
Yeah, I'm really preparing. I'll have about 4 or 5 rows, about 12, 15 feet long at about 6 feet high. So it'll go well.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're ready.
There's my firewood story for the day.
I love firewood. I have
Oh, yeah.
I have about a quarter of a cord in my little backyard too. So
Nice.
yep.
Nice.
I gotta have a fireplace. So it's one of my checklists on any house I live in. If I don't have a bathtub, at least I have a fireplace.
Exactly. New Joe is asking, why are we so believing that any of the so-called ghost detection devices actually work when no one can define what spirits are in the first place? I still cannot understand how a person who is now a spirit can suddenly become an electrical engineer and cross from non-physical to the physical world and tap into a stored algorithmic database to communicate. I mean, really? If they're that smart, why can't they carry on a lengthy conversation or tell us that they cannot remain to do so? Oh, that was a mouthful, New Joe.
Who was that? Joe?
Yeah.
Joe, that was an excellent question. I commend you on that question because I don't have an answer for you. Again, that's what's so bizarre about this whole field is these people are suddenly gadget-bearing experts of the unknown. That's funny in itself. You are an expert of the unknown. Okay, good.
Which means you really know nothing.
Exactly.
There is irony there.
There is some irony there. And that's the best place to start from. If you just know, you aren't going to probably know too much, but it is just a fascinating experience. When you do encounter something, and you do have a EMF detector and you are sensing energy that's unexplainable, or you're seeing light anomalies and you know for a fact that you're not hallucinating in any way whatsoever. It's a fascinating field, and the gadgets have gotten really silly.
Well, let's talk about the gadgets. I mean, people are spending a lot of money. I mean, they say there's no money in the paranormal. I want to be one of these people who creates these gadgets, whether it's phone apps or ghost boxes or something. I mean, because that's where the money is. People are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on this because they believe that the technology is going to be able to prove it.
Yeah.
So where do you stand on that?
Less is more. Like I said, I've downscaled to, if I am going to go in on, although I do have friends that are very very skilled at gathering audio evidence. I personally don't choose to use that. I think some people's best gauges are their own bodies, and just keep it simple. Mel meter and REM pod is pretty good. EMF detector, keep it simple.
So mainly you're working on your own intuitive feeling.
Pretty much, but also not just going off of what I'm feeling and making a conclusion. Like I said, that's perception. That's why it's important to bring in other people too, and just kind of collectively gather information that way based on what everybody's experiencing, but also confirm it with instruments to eliminate other possibilities.
Tell us a ghost story, one that really baffled you. Maybe not scary, just strange and weird, one that you think about all the time.
I really don't think about the paranormal all the time because I'm kind of more focused on life and living and serving living people more so than not. Let's see. Oh, I've got a really interesting one. A friend of mine, it's not a case I handled, but a friend of mine was doing a residential investigation, and this poor individual was profoundly disturbed with PTSD and was a veteran and had never gotten proper treatment for his PTSD and was experiencing poltergeist activity. And people again, very credible. These are some very credible people in the field that I know had gone in and gathered evidence and literally saw things happen that could not be explained, that were just baffling. And upon reviewing the evidence, they started realizing that, gosh, the EVPs that they're catching sound oddly familiar. And so they started kind of filtering them out and really, isolating the EVPs. And they realized that it was in his own voice. So all of the EVPs that they were collecting were of his own voice, of the man that lived there with PTSD. So he was literally haunting his own environment, and after getting help and going through treatment and substance abuse treatment, a lot of the activity slowed down.
How does that even happen?
I think it's kind of, again, how apparently, energy and emotions and people, we carry a lot more. There's a lot more to us than we realize. We leave energy in our environment. That's why blessing an object works. That's why intention works. When you pray over something and you put intention on it, that's positive. That's a lot of positive energy. If you are very disturbed, or again with PTSD, it's a lot of repression of a lot of hurt and negative experience. And so I guess his emotions being so bottled up, he was creating poltergeist activity in his own environment, and all of the EVPs were in his own voice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That had to freak him out.
No, it actually probably kind of comforted him when he realized that, it was him that was doing it. That would kind of eliminate a lot of the fear, don't you think?
I really don't know. I've never really thought about that.
That's a real mind bender, isn't it? Let's see, what's another one? I've got lots of them. Let's see.
Let's hear one more.
All right. Gosh. Narrow it down a little bit here. Well, my story was kind of a bit of a trip. I moved into a house up in the mountains, and we were pressed for finding a rental before the winter hit. It was kind of an odd time of the year to be looking for a rental. And my husband at the time was an agnostic police officer, very logical, very pragmatic. And I was very logical, very pragmatic. I had a young child, and we found this house that was built in the late 70s, of all things, and it seemed like such a great deal. It was warm. It was in a great place, right by a highway, plowed regularly, all the bells and whistles, and cheap. So I didn't like it the first time I saw it. This was back when I had no clue that I was able to pick up on this stuff as much as I can. I just did not like it upon first sight, but we had to take it because our house just closed escrowed down the hill, and we were in a pinch. So we take it, we move in, and I'm on high alert. I'm thinking it's because I moved from the city to the mountains. I'm paranoid. My husband's a cop. He's down the hill working, and I'm alone. My son's little. All these things are going through my mind. Then I start thinking, well, maybe it's carbon monoxide. I feel really weird. I feel really low energy. I felt really down when I would go into that house, and I was just like, what's going on? So carbon monoxide detectors everywhere. Thought about that. I'm a fire captain's daughter, So I'm like, okay, I'm going to eliminate the carbon monoxide. Just, again, no discussion, no inkling of anything paranormal. We're always staying in logic about everything. I would go down and do my laundry. I couldn't stay down there for after dark, more than 30 minutes, that I'd have to get my butt up the stairs, and I would even leave all the lights on. I was too freaked out to go downstairs. So I thought maybe there was an animal down there because we were facing the woods. Maybe there was a bear in the woods and I'm picking up on that. Who knows? Maybe I had a creeping, perverted neighbor looking in my windows. I had no idea what I was.
It's those garden gnomes.
Yeah.
They do it every time. The gnomes do it every time.
Yeah. So I'm so logical. Then all of a sudden my son just pipes up one day at dinner at my sister's house and says that he doesn't like living in Lake Arrowhead because the bad man that lives downstairs scares him. So we just all stop what we're doing and we look at him, I say, there's no bad man down there, blah, blah, blah. We just dismiss it. But that kind of stuck. Next thing you know, my son's starting to have nightmares. Again, he's not picking up on any fear that he's witnessing on my part. Because again, I'm thinking I'm just being ridiculous. And I noticed that when my husband would come home from work, he would go downstairs to turn off the lights, all annoyed because I left the lights on again. And he would go down there and he would pause and he would stay down there for a couple of seconds. And then I would hear him run up the stairs as fast as he could. And so I asked him one night, I said, why do you run up the stairs? He goes, well, why do you leave the lights on? I hate going down there. And I was like, well, I don't like going down there either, so I leave the lights on. And I said, well, why do you run up the stairs? He said, I feel like there's someone right behind me. And I'm like, you know what? That's how I feel too. I feel like somebody is watching me down there. I literally would feel like when I would be doing my laundry that there was somebody right up against the back of me, and I would turn around and look, and there was nobody there. And it was the weirdest, and thank God I haven't had any experiences like that in any place I've ever lived since. It was the weirdest experience. So my son starts having nightmares and waking up in the middle of the night saying that the man is scaring him again. And I go to one of the neighbors one day. I just have had enough. And I'm thinking we're just all losing our minds, and maybe it's just some negativity left over from prior renters. Well, I go and I ask the neighbor, have you always known everybody that's lived in this house? And he goes, why? And I said, well, I don't really know. I just don't feel really comfortable sometimes. And he says, oh, you must be sensitive. And it's at that time that my police officer husband puts down the trash can and comes walking right up because that got his attention. And we're like, okay, what do you mean? And he says, well, I probably shouldn't tell you. I probably shouldn't tell you this. No, oh gosh, here I go. No, here we go. So he proceeds to tell me that 2 years before we had moved into that house, the owner's brother moved in, who was a very distraught alcoholic going through a divorce that had a nasty temper, died in that house and had been dead in that house for 3 days before he himself found him dead on the couch. And in the buildup, which is right underneath the cabin in the bottom level of the house where my washing machine was, were all of his possessions, including his trophies, his hunting trophies, his bed, everything that he owned was shoved into that buildup.
Oh, that's freaky.
It sucked. And so we were able to confirm by county coroner that, yes, in fact, the guy did die in the house. And thankfully, we were able to get out of release because they didn't disclose it. But ultimately, this resulted in me contacting a pastor in the local mountains and me being terrified of being called crazy, but what we were experiencing was real. There wasn't anything extraordinary going on paranormal. It was just more of a feeling, and it was just hard to even put into words. It felt like somebody was in the house. And the pastor that we wound up having come and help us brought another pastor. Neither one of them have ever had any experience in the paranormal. And the young Presbyterian pastor that was kind enough to come and do a prayer for us kind of remained down in the basement area because he felt that something was odd down there. And so I go back upstairs with, my husband at the time and the other pastor, and serving donuts and coffee, and we're just thinking, yay, we prayed down there, everything's over with. But this other pastor remained down there and was down there praying. And according to what he told me, he didn't tell us to stay, but he felt something restrict his throat while he was praying. And it scared him. And he composed himself and came back upstairs and didn't say a word other than, here's my phone number. Please call me if you ever need anything. And I mean that. Please call me. And so I was like, well, thank you, Pastor, but I'm sure we're good. And we prayed, everything's fine. And I thought it was over. And lo and behold, a week later, it just hit the fan. Things just got worse. And we were all afraid at that point. And it resulted in some missionaries coming into my house and doing a full-blown prayer session through my home. And it was just the most surreal, frightening thing I've ever gone through in my life. And that's what led me into this wanting to help people.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. It kind of almost said, no, but it almost sent a destiny for you. Like that was the path you were supposed to take.
Yeah, and it was so scary, and I felt so helpless. And when you have a child, the last thing you want to do is make them afraid, and you don't want to confirm their fears. So you don't even want to have them hear you talking about it, and you want to stay as rooted in logic as possible. But that's the tricky part about living in a haunted environment is you have to stay logical, because every time something happens, you want to attribute it to the paranormal when it can be explained and can be logical. So you're just trying to navigate through that. And, that's what led me to wanting to help people. So there's that story. And that was confirmed. And yeah, we got the heck out of there. That house was built in the 70s. And we wound up buying a house that was built in 1942, and it was not haunted at all. And I since have not lived in any place that was haunted.
Oh, come on. What's wrong with a haunted house?
I prefer to,
My goodness. Who doesn't live in a haunted house these days? Jeez. My
exactly.
goodness.
All you have to do is watch, well, I better not call out any particular show.
Oh, wait.
All you have to do is just tune into some paranormal television, and of course you got a haunted house.
Exactly. Or you just listen to this show, because Lord knows, between the aliens and the ghosts, I'm just waiting for Bigfoot to knock on the window. That's the only thing I haven't had yet, is I'm waiting for Sasquatch. Can you point me in the direction of the forest, please? I'm a little lost right now. I'm waiting for that to happen.
I've had some really interesting paranormal cases that included what appeared to be some potentially alien activity.
Oh, yeah. I believe, and this is my opinion, and I know a few people are starting to go this way, and I'm not saying that I'm a trendsetter or anything, but I'm curious to get your opinion on this, because I am a firm believer that there is this, I'm going to use this real silly term, like this cosmic thread that has sewn together ghosts, spirit world, extraterrestrials, cryptids such as Bigfoot or fairies or anything along those lines. I really do believe they are tied together. And I realize that 98% of the entire investigative field in the paranormal / supernatural does not believe that. But what is your thoughts on that?
Again, I had a really good teacher years ago in the beginning of this. She believed that they were all tied together, and it could be a possibility. She believed that, but then again, you got to keep the balance too. There's those people that want to attribute everything to being demonic, and I don't do that. So I do see a correlation, though. Some of the cases that we investigated, for example, one particular case, this boy, his uncle was an architect, not an architect. He was I just did a brain fart, an archaeologist. And he had and a sociologist, and he had spent some time in Peru. And he was really fascinated by the Peruvian culture. And he found like a little Peruvian statue, and it looked like an alien kind of type object. And he gave it to this boy. And after he gave it to that boy, weird activity started happening. He started having like nightmares and seeing the little gray people and having light manifestations in his room. And he felt that he was getting abducted. And he also started feeling that it was demonic and it was evil. And then it was the same thing. And one of the more well-known paranormal investigators, not Ralph Sarchi, and I went to his home to actually pray over him and try to help him. And he was actually having very bizarre neurological type seizures that medicine couldn't identify. They couldn't figure out why he was having these weird tremors. He had a full evaluation, neurological evaluation. Nobody could explain it. And the pictures that he showed me that he had been taking of these things were just crazy. It was just absolutely bizarre. And those were some of the most incredible photographs I've ever seen, actually. And yeah, I kind of wish I still had them. But I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
We only got about 5 minutes left with you here before we got to go to break again. And then we'll talk to you on the other side of hour number 3. But I want to get to a question here from Karen, who is asking, this goes back to when we were talking about demons. She says, what if you don't believe in demons?
Well, then they have a great advantage over you already. Because not knowing how they work and not well, let's see. How can I put this? There's a book that a lot of people in theology, they don't, well, especially Catholics, they don't particularly care for. It's called Pigs in the Parlor. And it basically normalizes the concept of what a demon is. And is a demon, do demons always result in a complete possession and you're seeing like Amityville horror activity? Or can it be something as simple as something that is holding you in a personal lie or a personal belief that's oppressive, or holding you in addiction, or holding you in some sort of sense of pain? You know, demons can, it's something that has become so fear-based. They need to be respected and they need to be understood, and not all demons can run around and possess people. Sometimes they just are oppressive, and there are different ways in which the demonic play into people's lives. And one thing I do like about the book Pigs in the Parlor is that it makes it a little bit more understood, and it kind of normalizes such a scary word and such a scary concept. And the more you understand it, and the biggest power the demonic have over any human is through their thoughts and through their mind. And one of the first things I learned before I even went into spiritual warfare work was having a complete inventory of my own personal weaknesses and my own spiritual weak spots, so that way I could understand where I may be attacked. And so you have to be really honest with yourself and really honest about your weaknesses, because that is where the demonic play into. So if you are somebody who's rooted in ego, or you think you're too intellectual to believe in God and demons don't exist, well then they're right there. That's that is one way in which you can be manipulated. I hope that makes sense.
Follow up from Karen, who says, why is everything negative considered a demon? Why couldn't the negative just belong to one's own beliefs and thus created demonic because of the viewer's belief?
That can happen too. That's where you go into psychology. So that also can be a part of it too. And, you know, sometimes if you address your own psyche, you know, not everything does have to be demonic. There's different things. There's depression that isn't related to a demon. There's all kinds of different things that go into that.
Let's get to one more question here before we have to go to our break, and I'll have about 45 seconds for this answer. It comes from Max, who is asking, is closing prayer with Amen invoking the spirit of Amen Ra?
No. But I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. But no, amen is a closure to a prayer. That's different. It's a whole different subject.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We got you for 30 more minutes. I'm pretty excited about that. We got a bunch more audience questions for you, and we will talk about some paranormal stories as well and get into what you are doing. We got a busy 30 minutes here left with you, Miss Debra.
Oh,
I know. I couldn't find it on my notepad again. Aguayo.
You're having fearful. You're locking up because you're afraid to mispronounce.
I'm paranoid of screwing up that now. Aguayo.
I really don't care.
I do though. That's the problem. My OCD with my anxiety is not going well here with Aguayo tonight. And by the way, just so you know, on YouTube pronunciation, they got it wrong too.
Oh, really? That's okay.
Yeah.
No biggie.
All right,
There's
you hold
been a
on.
lifetime of mispronunciation.
I know. You hold on.
Okay.
Debra Aguayo is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, as we got her for another 30 minutes. We're going to be talking all things paranormal coming up after the break on the Mighty SOR.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. This weekend, we have Tessa Nicole Thomas coming in for the weekend show while I find my Zen, my Chi, hopefully a Sasquatch or two, while I am out in the wilderness, hanging on out in the beautiful mountains of British Columbia. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Don't forget, you can check out all of our archives at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Mike McNeil set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. And I'm going to tell you, this is just ugly. It's absolutely ugly. Hippopotamonstrosis quipedaliophobic. Hippopotamonstrosis quipedaliophobic is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as Michael or Bill set the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, soon shop at our brand new Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Debra Aguayo. I got it. Son of a gun. I got it. Debra Aguayo is our guest tonight on the show. We are talking everything from demons to paranormal and everything that goes along in between, including any type of weird, strange activity that you may be having, because that's the way we like to do things around here. Debra, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I want to get to a couple of our questions from our audience, and then we're going to kind of move forward here with a number of topics that we still got to get to tonight. And the next half hour is going to go really, really fast for us, and hopefully we could squeeze it all in. But let's get to a couple of questions here. Dale is asking, do negative spirits ever recruit human allies?
Yes.
How?
Negative human spirits, basically, I have heard of cases, and I have seen cases where a malevolent, not a demonic, but a malevolent person lived in the house, and just kind of, they can affect the energy of somebody vulnerable in that house. Like, for example, if the malevolent spirit, human spirit, was an alcoholic, it can start influencing someone in the household that has a weakness toward that to start drinking, and just kind of bring them into that negative state that they are in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can accept that. Judges? I mean, no, we're
I've been
good.
up since 5:30 this morning, and I worked a 10-hour shift, so I'm a little tired, but I hope that came out and made sense. But yes, I have seen that happen in a lot of different ways.
Peter is asking, we have a hospital that's haunted, that's about to be torn down. What will happen to the ghosts? Will they leave?
I have no idea. If it's somebody that's attached to a location, I believe that they probably would. Maybe that would probably prompt them to move on. Or if it's just residual energy that has attached itself to the environment, and it has taken on like a human form because it was a human being's energy that was left behind, maybe it will dissipate when when it's taken down. It might. Again, you're talking to an expert of the unknown. How would I know? I don't know. And I, that's what's so funny, I mean, I don't think, you can only guess by what you've experienced, and even at that, it's a guess. So you can be in the paranormal field, you can be a parapsychologist, you can be Ed Warren himself, and you probably would, if you're going to be honest, say, I'm not sure.
intriguing. Karen is asking, what do you believe, Deborah, in, and do you have a certainty in any of your own experiences, especially if you have had any of your own experiences recount, or do you not believe any of your experiences?
Oh, gosh, I absolutely believe my experiences. And like I said, my experiences have led me to where I am now. And that is just a deeper respect and acceptance that there is the unknown and there is a lot of unexplained activity, and that there is a supernatural world out there, and that there is life after death because of what I have experienced. So it's only deepened my belief.
How has it changed you as a person, this entire field?
Oh, it's humbled me. It has humbled me tremendously. And it's enriched my life in a lot of ways, because being allowed the experiences that I've had, and again, I can be a skeptic. I'm okay with being wrong. I'm okay with understanding that what I experienced was not correct, but yet I've had experiences that can't be explained, that were also witnessed by others, that were also picked up and confirmed by equipment and data and scientific means, I would say. And that's just such a gift in itself, knowing that there's just so much more than our physical understanding of life in existence. And I'm really grateful that God allowed me that and kept me safe through those experiences. And that's just changed my entire outlook on life in general.
Could you do this mission with the paranormal without God?
How can you believe in life after death or in the spirit world without believing in God?
There's a lot of people who try not to correlate the two because they are anti-religion.
You can be anti-religion, but not anti-God. You know, if you're gonna accept that there is a spirit that does not die with a physical body, then there's got to be a God, because there's a greater spirit that is obviously, you know, I mean, I don't see how one could really deny that there is a God. I can understand being not openly religious, because a lot of people have been hurt by religion, unfortunately. So I can understand that.
Is it a sensitive topic when it comes to the paranormal?
It depends. I think that religion can be a sensitive topic for a number of reasons. A lot of people, for maybe they've had negative experiences in religion, or maybe it's how somebody conveys their religious beliefs that can be offensive. There's a lot of reasons why it can be a sensitive subject, even outside of the paranormal.
When it comes to demonology, and you have researched this ad nauseum for a long, long time, and obviously being part of the television show The Demon Files kind of gives you a little bit of weight and credibility in this, how many demons are actually running around here? Because there's a lot of investigators, whether they're intuitive, they're shamans, they're a number of different people who claim that it has been very rare in their paranormal life or experiences to have actually encountered a demonic spirit. I know a guy who's been doing this for 50 years, and he says that he's only encountered it twice in 50 years.
Yeah. Well, I would say 90% of my cases, they were either mild paranormally active or even psychological, and then maybe the 10%, and that 10% only because of who I was connected with, because he would actually get referrals from the church that have already been screened. So I was kind of dealing with a different group that was already filtered through. So my experience with legitimate demonic cases is a little higher because they were already vetted and screened through churches and through paranormal teams and then referred through Ralph. So that kind of limited, you know, that kind of screened them all out. So they were already funneled through. But I would say they're not nearly as common as they want to be made out to be, because people want the sensationalism on television, and it's just a fun topic for everybody.
No, I get that, and I can appreciate that. But is there a sense that maybe there is just an overflow of exuberance and wanting to use the D word?
Yeah, they want to drop the D bomb because it's scary, because it's now, people are thrill seekers by nature. So everybody's tolerance has now gone up. And I remember when I first watched Ghost Adventures, I was scared. It scared me, you know, it was really scary, and it was nothing too severe. And then, of course, you know, over time, they keep us watching, it had to get scarier and more and more and more serious. And now it's just everybody's kind of bored with the average ghost and average haunting, and now everybody's evolved to, ooh, everything has to be a demon to keep their interest. It's just kind of the way it goes.
Does that bother you, though? Because in the end, doesn't it not give the impression that, and I realize demons are ratings, okay? Demons are television gold when it comes to this entire topic. And in the end, the television companies really do not care if what the story is. They just want the D word in there.
Yeah.
You know, is it hard to play along with that?
Oh, well, we didn't. And that's why we only had one season, because Ralph literally told the network to kiss his rear end. Because he didn't feel comfortable with aspects of the filming, and he just decided that this is just not for me. I don't feel comfortable with it. It doesn't feel right spiritually, and I'm not going to just play along and amp up evidence, and I'm not going to share evidence that I feel could be harmful just for people to be frightened. He took it very seriously. He did it very ethically, and he followed his moral and his spiritual foundation along the way. And when they wanted more sensationalism, and I mean, there was evidence that we collected that we did not share. And Ralph had absolute control over every aspect of what was shown on that television show. And we eliminated a lot of stuff because we didn't want to make it a big spooky forum. We wanted to show people more about the other side of spiritual warfare and the other side of paranormal. We wanted to make it a little bit more about God and not so much focused on the demonic and the evidence and the scary sensationalism of it. But we do know that a little bit of that had to go into it to keep people interested, of course. But we cut it back, and we had excellent reviews, and they wanted to go again. And Ralph, they put certain restrictions on him, and he said no, so he left.
Well, that has to be tough, though. Because, I mean, I'm saying because, you know, you're trying to give credibility to the subject and what you do and have people take it seriously. But in the end, the networks are the ones trying to tell you, yeah, maybe you want to spice it up a little bit.
Well, they weren't telling us to fake anything, but they knew darn well that we were holding back on certain things, and we didn't want to make the focus entirely about the negative evidence that we were collecting. We wanted it to be more about showing the angles about the individuals and how it impacted them emotionally and how it crept into their lives and kind of got a stronghold into their lives. And then we wanted to show how that can be turned around and done so in a spiritual manner. And we wanted to show them how God can be brought into a situation like that and basically win the battle.
And the networks just wanted scary stories.
Yeah, they just wanted scary stories and spooky pictures and gnarly EVPs and all kinds of stuff, and that's not what we were about. We showed as much as we felt was necessary to prove our case, and we weren't going to give a open stage for the negativity that we were experiencing. And in 2 of the houses that we dealt with, we were experiencing very legitimate activity.
Frustrating?
Huh?
Is it frustrating?
No, I'm just glad it's over. I was not really down for wanting to be involved in television or anything. I was so honored to be asked to be a part of that I felt that it was God's will to do so, and I went along for the journey. I took it very serious. We were fasting. We were in prayer the whole time. It was hard. 3 weeks on the road, constantly going into some highly charged environments, and one in which was absolutely demonic, without a doubt. And that may result in some further, that may result in a book. I can't really go into it. But, yeah, spending a week in a house like that, it was just intense.
How much did...
you know...
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please. You finish.
No, I lost my train of thought. Go for it.
Well, I apologize.
No problem.
How much of this and what you've been through in the paranormal world has affected your career choices leading up to now?
My career choices? Not at all.
Well, like right now, you have a brand new job that you really love. You're doing chaplain work. I'm not going to say where or how or
yeah.
for who.
Well, I started feeling I was burning out a little bit on the paranormal. And because I was doing spiritual work, I didn't want to just stop unless I felt that it was what I was meant to do. I was meant to stop. And so I prayed about it, and I asked God to kind of show me what I have always wanted to serve and help people. I was in hospice when I was right out of high school, and, you know, I've always done some sort of service. Mm-hmm. And for over 7 years in the paranormal, I felt I was helping people. I was helping. Actually, I'm going to say it. I did. I helped a lot of people. I felt really good about what I've done. And even though I was burning out, I didn't want to just stop, but I was like, okay, this is really getting kind of frustrating, and it's negative. And, you know, I'm literally telling people, no, please go to a doctor. No, I have demons. This paranormal team told me I have demons. I'm just like, okay. This is just not going anywhere. And so I prayed about it, and then I was basically given an opportunity to become a chaplain. And after that, all my paranormal referrals just seemed to kind of slow down. So I took myself off of the referral list, as you know, and I went straight into the chaplaincy. And I'm telling you, this is the hardest work I've ever done. It is the most rewarding work I've ever done. And everything that I've learned in the paranormal has actually helped me in this work that I'm doing now with people. When I go into a house where people are just on their worst day you could ever imagine, having had been in these houses that were so negatively charged, I'm able to regulate myself, and I'm able to center myself in prayer before I go into the house and be more of a calming presence to the people and just offer them compassion. So in a sense, I'm doing a different type of spiritual warfare in that moment, just offering somebody compassion and being with them and comforting them in their worst moment.
Well, that's good. That's really good.
Well, thank you. I really love the work I'm doing, and I will say that it is some of the hardest work I've ever done. it is, again, there is just such a thin veil between life and death. And I think it's because of my belief and understanding that there is life after death, and having been given the blessing of proof in this work that I've done, it kind of gives me a different understanding of death. And so when I'm sitting next to somebody that's going through the grieving process, I'm able to give them just complete present compassion, and deep inside I'm knowing that their loved one is in a better place, and that just helps me stay grounded for the person that needs my presence.
So you feel like this almost prepared you for what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'm telling you, going into a house that's highly charged, and, it's kind of the same thing. It's like a matter of just staying spiritually centered as much as possible in a very heightened environment, and just being present and attuned, because you have to be very aware of everybody in the room. When you are in a situation like that as a chaplain, you have to literally be aware of everybody's needs as they need it. So you have to use a lot of your own intuition and your own empathy. And I think just learning how to be present with the Holy Spirit has helped me. And that training on that deep level, doing the spiritual work, has brought me to be able to bring it into this work. I hope that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I want to ask you this, though. A lot of people who have experiences, whether they believe in God or some other deity, or just believe in an energy source, whatever it may be, when they have their own experiences, it really changes their views on everything about an afterlife, about who they are, what life is all about. It really puts people on some sort of destination to try and find their own spiritual path. How did, when you started having experiences compared to where you are today, how did this whole thing change you?
Well, let's see. I was raised in a Christian household. I didn't really like the examples of Christianity I was given in the church that I was required to attend. It kind of turned me off. So organized religion just kind of didn't sit well with me. And but at the same time, I just felt I loved nature. I loved life. I loved people. And that's how I viewed God. I saw God in life and all the positives around me. And so I always had a deep understanding of spirituality, and then that led me into metaphysics, because I'd always had a certain discernment or gift of the spirit, you call it. So I was aware of that. So it led me into metaphysics, because I don't like the fear-based aspects of what I was being taught in the church that I attended, and the judgmental aspects, because if you're going to be Christ-like, there is absolutely no room for judgment. And if you're going to be doing Christ's work, you're going to be out there with the people that really need it, not huddling in a church and judging people. So I went into metaphysics and had some really interesting experiences in that led me to start realizing that there was more to things than let on. And oddly enough, I was watching a show on the Shroud of Turin, a documentary on that, and my son was little. He was about 2 years old, and I said a prayer. I said that, I just don't know what I feel, and forgive me for asking this, but if Christ is really who he is. Can you please show me in a way that I will never question again, so that way I can understand who you are and if you are who I've been told you are. I felt bad even asking that. That's kind of a really, how dare I ask such a question, right? Well, it wasn't but 6 months later that I moved into the haunted house that scared the Jesus into me, you know? So 6 months later, 6 months later, I move into that house, and again, I didn't know what else to do, and I noticed that there was something going on when you are left with nothing but get away from me in the name of Jesus Christ. And you're already apparently really sensitive to that type of energy to where you can feel it back off. I mean, to me, the name of Jesus was not as meaningful at that point. I used it out of desperation. I used it out of, well, okay, I'm going to do this, because I was raised as a Christian, and it was like night and day. It was like, whoa, okay, wait a minute, this is odd, and this is kind of different. I started noticing what a huge difference that was. And then when I saw what happened with the missionaries, and it wasn't just that guy, by the way, that had passed away in the house. The house had a bad history. A woman had also lived there that attempted suicide on pills. There was some people that had used methamphetamine in there. And the owner of the house had allegedly molested his daughters in the house.
Right. My friend.
So there was layers. Oh, go ahead.
I got to get you to finish this up because we do have to get going.
Okay. So anyway, so that's kind of where my own spiritual path led me to what I believed, because it was through my experiences.
Well, I'm glad you got a great career coming up here that you're just kicking off, and I wish you all the best, Miss Deb.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We're going to get to the news here. And we thank Deb for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight to talk about demons, talk about the paranormal, the religious side, and everything like that. What a great show. What a great show. But coming up next, we have The Encounter as we wrap up the week with Olaf Phillips. Deb, thank you so much. We are entering The Encounter tonight as it is Friday night, which means that we get into all the weird, the strange, the WTF of the news of the night. And with that, we bring in from Paranoia Magazine and The Encounter Online, Mr. Olaf Phillips, height unknown, weight unknown, location unknown. He is the man of mystery and vice president of Team Stump. Mr. Olaf, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm telling you, man, I'm tired. I'm tired today. I'm doing too much woodwork.
You've been sick. Too much woodwork, and you were sick and cutting down trees and being Canadian?
I know. So Canadian, I forgot to wear plaid while I was cutting down the trees. But don't tell my fellow Canucks, man. Don't tell my fellow Canucks.
You just told them it's a radio show.
Well, I realize that, but like 80% of our audience is in the U.S., so I may have some grace there. I may have some grace.
I don't know. You're going to be known as the local Canadian guy with no plaid. It's not going to be good, man.
But I do have plaid shirts. I do. I'm not saying that I don't have the plaid shirts. Not going there.
Yeah,
at
but
all.
you weren't wearing it. I'm sorry, you were not representing.
Come on. Give me a break here, man. Give me a break.
All right, I'll give you a break. Okay.
So, some exciting news. We had a big test today with a company that we are working with for our audio and everything like that, as we look for a November 1st launch on hopefully a plethora of terrestrial radio stations, and it went very well. Went very, very well.
Excellent.
I'm pretty excited about that. One step
Moving
closer.
Onwards and upwards.
Well, that's kind of the goal, man. That's
You're
kind
gonna,
of the goal.
You're gonna get on that low power FM radio unit that you have in your garage any day now.
There will be no towers at SOR headquarters.
No, low power FM. There's no tower. It's just an antenna. Goes about a quarter mile.
Yeah, in Canada, the CRTC doesn't really appreciate things like that. They're a little stiff, shall we say?
Well, they're a little stiff down here too, but you can still get away with a low power transmitter. If you live on a hill, it'll go about a quarter of a mile. If you live in a city, it'll go about, I think, three or four blocks.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, you can bug your neighbors basically.
Yeah, give them the eyesore of an antenna. What the hell?
I'd put an aerial in my backyard if I could swing it.
I don't know if I'd want an antenna in my backyard. I mean, it would block my trees, man, and I kind of like my trees.
You know, up at Camp Paranoia someday when I build out my dream conspiracy cabana up there, I do think I may need an aerial to get 4G.
Oh, that
I can only get 3G without it. Yeah, I can only get 3G without it. I think I might have to put up a mast.
Well, you may have to. You may have to.
I may have to.
Just remember, when
you
build Camp Paranoia, there's going to be a lot of bears around there.
Yeah, and Bigfoot has been seen within 1 mile.
Nice.
So I'm at mile marker 237, I think, and Bigfoot was sighted at 238.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Bigfoot country.
I may go out tomorrow. I may take the little guy and go out in the forest and go looking. I don't know yet.
A nice jaunt in the forest is always good for your soul.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
The only problem is it wears you out. Even just driving around and enjoying it, it literally wears you out.
You know what I noticed at Camp Paranoia, and I've never noticed this anywhere else. It's part of the reason that I bought it. When I go there, you think, and I took the boys up there, and my parents and everything. When you set foot in Camp Paranoia, I noticed that there's like a time dilation there. That you think you've been there for maybe like 2 hours, and the kids have run off in the forest and messed around, and they come back and they're tired. And it's like right now, it's just raw forest, and so we leave to go stay somewhere because I haven't built out the camping area yet. And it turns out that you've been there for 4 or 5 hours, sometimes even 6. And it feels
ridiculous.
like you've been there for it's the strangest thing. You think you've been there an hour, you've been there like 3 hours. It's real weird.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I can totally attest to that.
Yeah,
that's kind of the way it is around here too.
There's also something strange there, but I'll tell you about it some other time.
Let's get into the news. Speaking of the weird, the strange, and the WTF as we head into the weekend.
Well, since we were going into the weekend, UPI has a new article. Houston couple creates Good Boy beer for dogs. A pair of Houston bar owners who started brewing beer for their ailing canine a few years ago are now selling Good Boy dog beer at more than 20 locations.
Nice.
Yeah, so apparently at their bar, their brew house, or 20 other locations in the general area that are dog friendly, you can come in and have a cold one and soak in your dog.
I'm hoping that's alcohol free for the dog.
It is alcohol free. It has, let me see here. It has the information. Here you go. She said the beer contains all natural ingredients, including vegetables, meat, turmeric, a spice known to aid digestion in canines. And the names are hilarious. There's IPA Lot in the Yard, session, squirrel, and mailman malt liquor.
Oh, nice. How much does that go for? That's actually kind of cool.
It doesn't say how much it goes for. That it does not mention. But the brews are called beer because we use a lot of the same equipment a brewery does. We just skip the fermentation process. So it is definitely dog friendly.
That is just so cool. I wish more places would do that. That is just spectacular. Just spectacular. Dog beer.
Yeah, I thought dog beer. I thought that was a hoot.
Totally. I mean, who doesn't want to take their best friend into the bar? Especially if you're a single guy or a single girl and you want to, maybe do the bar scene or whatever, if people are still doing that while not staring at their phones. I mean, because let's face it, your dog is going to choose the best partner. If your dog doesn't like the person that you are dating, that's a good sign that it isn't going to work.
Dogs and cats are very good choices of people. That they
are.
They have an innate sense of the quality of the person.
Yeah, totally, right?
True. Totally.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I know, like, my dog hates my uncle. My uncle's never done a thing to him, but he just hates my uncle. My uncle just will not come around him. And my uncle's a good dude. But, I mean, what do? Dog freaks him out.
My dog, when I was a kid, my dog did not like my grandmother. Loved everybody else, but did not like my grandmother for some reason. She never did a thing to him, but he just wanted no part of her.
Maybe she should have had some of that grandma cooking for him.
Maybe she should have bought him a dog beer.
That would have worked. Let's go on to story number 2, my friend.
From the Mirror, time traveler using mobile phone spotted in 1940s photograph of beachgoers. As Cornwall beachgoers soak up the rays in a photograph taken in September 1943, there's a rather unusual sight among the bustle. Eagle-eyed social media users are convinced that a time traveler has turned up in a 1940s beach shot. The man in scruffy brown suit can clearly be seen in the middle of the wartime photo, peering into what appears to be a cell phone or a mobile phone. Around him are dozens of sun-loving beachgoers soaking up the last summer rays of September 1943. The image was taken at Towan Beach, Cornwall, and posted online by Stuart Humphreys, who initially didn't spot the decade dodger. And I have to tell you, I'm looking at the photo right now, and he's dressed a little weird. He's wearing a scruffy brown suit, as it said, and he's peering into something. So I don't know.
I'm looking for it right now. Cornwall Beach?
Yeah, it's Cornwall Beach, September 1943. It's on the Mirror.
He I realize that the Mirror isn't the most just journalism. But looking at this photo, he does look like he's texting.
He does. He looks like he's texting.
That's kind of weird.
It's kind of very
just
weird.
Google the image. What I did was I just Googled the image Cornwall Beach time traveler.
Yeah, it's weird. It's definitely strange.
You know what I don't buy about this though? There's there's all these famous photos or videos like the Charlie Chaplain or the Gold Bridge here in British Columbia.
Right.
That Gold Bridge, dude, I was in that area. There is no way that a time traveler is going to go to the Gold Bridge. It goes nowhere. There's no reason for a time traveler to be there. It is the weirdest thing. It is the weirdest thing because if you saw where it is, it's in the middle of the mountains that crosses a river. It's not near Vancouver. It's not near any metropolis. It's not near anything of substance. And I got a real weird feeling about a lot of this, man, because I want to believe. I want to believe in the whole time traveler thing. I want to believe in Andrew Vashago. I want to believe all of these really cool stories like the Philadelphia experiment and so on and so forth. Like that stuff totally geeks me out. But I mean, that whole Gold Bridge one,
There's
nothing there.
The problem is twofold, right? One is you have the butterfly effect. You know, the butterfly effect irrevocably changing the future. You also have the notion of the multiverse, where if somebody were able to travel back in time, the act of traveling back in time forks the multiverse. So although you know for a fact this dude traveled back in time, he is now applied to a fork in the road, and he's now going down a different path in the multiverse, right? So you wouldn't necessarily ever see him again, or if he came back, what he saw isn't necessarily going to do anything here because he caused a change which caused a fork in the multiverse. So he created a new timeline. So it gets really complicated really fast, but I don't know that we would ever see the results of the time traveler, even if you knew for a fact that they went back.
Who knows?
You
All I
can't
know is that when I found out where the Gold Bridge was in British Columbia, and I was kind of near that area, about an hour south of it, in the middle of the mountains, where literally it was a logging town with a restaurant and a bar. That's it.
fine.
Just doesn't make sense for a time traveler to say, oh, this is kind of interesting. Just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I have yet to see anybody claiming to be a time traveler that it has any substance to it. I hear a lot of good stories. It's very theatrical and fun. But I don't know, man. I have not seen any evidence that it's actually happened.
I know.
You
we
know?
all want it. We all want it to happen. But will it?
We
Who
do.
knows?
That's
Who
true.
knows if it will? We must yearn the wanting to believe, man. We must be one with the gnomes in order to make this stuff happen.
All right.
Yeah, that's
On
my
that
belief.
note.
On that note, let's go to story number 3.
Okay, so I know you were talking about demonic stuff tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I went and did a little search, and on Ranker, which is one of these cheesy sites that ranks stuff, I found the most sinister places in the world. And it's actually quite surprising. Number 1, Turin, Italy. Turin, Italy is the Devil's City. One of the largest satanic communities in all of Europe resides in Turin, Italy. According to Archbishop Anastasio Bellistario, the devil lives here. And in the 1980s, the Catholic Church brought in 6 new exorcists just to balance the scale and combat evil energy thriving in the city.
Whoa.
Some say the entrance to the underworld is in the Palazzo Statuotto, which is allegedly one of the 3 vertices forming a black magic triangle, London and San Francisco. Well, I got to check that out. Are the other 2 points. It also forms a white magic triangle, with one of the other points being in Lyon and Prague. Occult and Masonic symbols like inverted pentagrams and winged devils can be found throughout Turin, including around significant landmarks like the Piazza Statuotto, the Via Vittorio Alfieri, and the Piazza del Palazzo. It's said that beneath the city of Turin, the wealthy elite meet with demons and perform satanic rituals to gain and retain power over the city. You want more?
Yeah, give it to me, man. Let's do this.
The devil was chased out of his Bolsover, England, but his followers remain. Bolsover is considered the most satanic city in all of England. In 2011, 17 of the 76,000 residents claimed Satanism as their religion on the census. While the number is small, Bolsover has more Satanists per capita than anywhere else in the nation, and it's now the chief city in England's satanic heartland.
Wow. And it's weird that that's where the Shroud of Turin is.
Yeah, I know. Ominous candles keep track of who passes the Hell House of Massapequa, a house of devil worship in a North Massapequa, New York neighborhood, has been the source of gossip and local lore for years. The looming brick mammoth of a Victorian is complete with iron gates and a black hearse parked out front. It has a black sidewalk leading up to it until it eventually painted the same bleeding maroon as the house. According to locals, candles were always kept lit in its velvet-dressed windows, and somehow the number of candles would always correspond to the number of people in the cars that passed by. If you drove by alone, there would be one candle lit. If you came back after picking up some friends, there would be additional candles in the window, one for each passenger in the car.
Oh, weird.
How's that for creepy?
That is just very, very strange. Very, very strange. I don't like stuff like that, you know. That
I know.
just weirds
You
me
want
out.
You want more?
Yeah, of course. We got time for about 2 more.
The Willowbrook State School has a history of devil worship. The people of Staten Island have been handing down the legend of Cropsey for decades. The story of a deranged, axe-wielding psycho who escaped from a mental institution and lurks in the dark tunnels under the abandoned Willowbrook State School. They say Cropsey came out to drag children back into the tunnels with him. As it turned out, Staten Island's boogeyman was real. Andre Rand had been haunting the woods, abducting children and murdering them. After his arrest, it was strongly believed that he wasn't acting alone. One of the many accusations made against Willowbrook when the school was still operational was that satanic worship was taking place in the basement. Since Rand used to work at Willowbrook, it was briefly theorized he was actually procuring children for cults. There had always been signs of satanic rituals being held in the ruins of Willowbrook and its surrounding woods, even the neighboring institution, Seaview Hospital. The Process Church, which is no longer operational, was thought to be involved at one point. This organization has been accused of having ties to both Charles Manson and David Berkowitz. Of course, these were just theories, and there was little evidence. Many of the victims' bodies were never recovered. Rand stood trial alone.
Oh, weird. Staten Island, also the home of Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL.
There you go.
Go figure.
The guitar god.
The guitar god from... I wonder if he knows about that. I'm going to have to ask him that next time I chat with him. All right, we got time for one quick one here.
The peacock angel is worshipped in Lalash, Iraq. There is a widely held belief that the Kurdish Yazidi community in northern Iraq are devil worshippers. Because of this, ISIS began targeting them, committing mass murder and acts of sexual slavery against them. Their connection to Satanism is through Melek Taus, or the peacock angel. Apparently, Yazidis worship the peacock angel as a god and creator, but according to Christian and Muslim beliefs, Melek Taus is actually Satan, the fallen angel, who peacocks around while trying to corrupt mankind. Regardless of whether or not they realize the parallels between Melek and Lucifer, the Yazidis have remained very open-minded when it comes to various elements of pagan traditions. As a result of this, Lalash has become one of the 7 towers of Satanism. When asked just who is Melek Taus, a member of the organization told The Telegraph, "We believe he is a proud angel who rebelled and was thrown into hell by God. He stayed there 40,000 years until his tears quenched the fires of the underworld. Now he is reconciled with God." Okay, so this is what the article says. Okay, so Satan, basically you guys worship Satan.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Oh, yeah.
The Satan. We'll do this one on Monday. The satanic panic craze of the 1980s began in Victoria, British Columbia.
Of course it did. Of course it did. That place has a lot of Satanism there. Let's get to the thought of the day.
Thought of the day.
Because I know Uncle Marty in Las Vegas loves this little cuterebra by Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Today's thought of the day happens every day at this time, where we post a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Then we wait for your responses to read them on air live, because we love the audience participation. So today's thought of the day is as follows. Have you ever encountered a spiritual demon? If so, what happened? Let's get to your responses, shall we? Catherine? I mentioned this one before about the time when I was staying in my daughter's room because she kept complaining of seeing lights at night. It was a large shadow figure that had the body of a man and the head of something else like a Chinese dragon or an ancient native mask. I was deadlocked in fear while we stared at each other. It charged at me, went through me. My mind snapped and I raced down the stairs. I soon developed an unknown origin of a DVT, deep vein thrombosis, underneath my right clavicle. Soon I ended up on warfarin, blood thinners for 9 months, and the doctor during that process told me I was going to die. Thankfully, I survived. Scary.
That is very scary.
Caden says, yes, 8 months of hell is what happened. Bite marks, scratches, oppression, possession, time lapses, hallucinations, and lucid dreams was a crazy ordeal which ultimately led to me pursuing the field of the paranormal. Uncle Bob, wow. Hi Bob. Yes, but I broke up with her after a few years. Russ, we dated. Jade, yes, at several times in my life, shadow figures. They don't like the Lord's Prayer and dissolve when it is recited. Interesting.
Yeah.
Robert, yes, at the bottom of my Jack Daniel's spirits, I opened another bottle. You never go wrong with that. Ever. John, I've talked about this with you in our interview, but I repeatedly saw short, stocky black humanoids with glowing red eyes when I was a child. Then, 40 years later, I saw them again over 2 consecutive nights while camping out in the deep woods of Oregon. This time, I had 2 other people with me who saw them as well. So I know I'm not crazy. My belief is that these demonic entities, although the other 2 witnesses feel more comfortable in believing that they were extraterrestrial or interdimensional. Damn it, I'm going Bigfoot. You're in Oregon. Bigfoot. Michael.
Bigfoot.
The Pen Man. Yes, he was at the grocery store, mad as the Mad Hatter. Don't get it. I don't get it. Patricia. In a Victorian house, 2 dark entities came at me as I was going to sleep. I held out both hands and palms and radiated white light. They left and returned. I blasted them again. They vanished. The intensity of my response surprised me. I was focused like a laser beam. Don't you mess with me. The power of her hands. That's scary.
That is.
All right. Debbie, one of my sons has battled an incubus for years, feeling smothered heaviness, dark, tall shadow figures, not being able to get up. It's very, very frightening. Captain Shirk, I always attribute my experience to poor mental health. Hers, not mine, but I'm still not sure. I've been told it was a demon in her. I was at the port of New York City, where a woman also was there. She walked by me, stopped, turned, and looked at me. Being a country bumpkin, I smiled at her. She went ballistic. It went off from there. Chris, yes, fixed. Vic, let's see. Tony gets the last one. Usually I get to handle these cases for Force Moon Paranormal. Luckily, they are rare and do abide by an honor system. You can make deals or force them out if need be if you are strong enough astrally. This is the most dangerous type of astral entity you can encounter. So please do not go looking for them. If you do, contact Dave Scott and our team will come save you. Second worst type is astral is aliens to encounter. Weird. Very weird. Olaf Phillips, thanks for a great week number 1 with you on the mic.
No problem. It was a lot of fun.
ParanoiaMagazine.com, and you can also read the news at SpacedOutRadio.com. Click on the news section. Our Facebook page is SOR The Encounter. Check it on out. Great times on there. Thank you, Debra Aguayo. There we go. For coming on the show. Appreciate it. Why does that name screw me up? Aguayo. It's so simple to say. I apologize again. Horrible host. Bad host. It's Friday night. Give me a break. Give me a break. Nonetheless, we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Don't forget this weekend, Tessa Nicole Thomas is in the hot seat here in SOR headquarters with the weekend show. I'll be out finding my Zen and my Chi, but I will be back Monday night with the Urban Avenger, real-life superheroes. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you to everybody sharing our shows this week, participating in the chat rooms on Spreaker, on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Your snark was fantastic. And, of course, the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers. Appreciate you doing the time, hanging out with us each and every night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good night.